The American Civil War, fought from 1861 to 1865, stands as one of the most defining and transformative periods in the nation's history. It was a conflict rooted in deep-seated differences between the northern and southern states, particularly over the institution of slavery, states' rights, and the balance of power within the federal government. As tensions rose throughout the 19th century, the election of Abraham Lincoln as president in 1860 served as a catalyst. Southern states, fearing that Lincoln's administration would restrict or abolish slavery, began to secede from the Union, forming the Confederate States of America. The war officially began on April 12, 1861, when Confederate forces fired upon Fort Sumter in South Carolina. What followed was a brutal and protracted conflict that would last 4 years, claiming more American lives than any other war in the nation's history. The Union, representing the northern states, was led by President Lincoln and sought to preserve the nation. The Confederacy, under President Jefferson Davis, fought for independence and the right to maintain their way of life, which was inextricably tied to slavery. Early in the war, both sides believed the conflict would be short-lived. However, major battles such as Bull Run, Antietam, and Shiloh quickly dispelled those illusions. The war became a test of endurance, resources, and willpower. The industrialized North held significant advantages in population, manufacturing, and infrastructure, while the South relied on its military leadership and the hope of foreign support. Slavery remained at the heart of the conflict. In 1863, Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation, declaring all slaves in Confederate-held territory to be free. This shifted the war's focus from solely preserving the Union to also fighting for human freedom. The proclamation also discouraged foreign nations, particularly Britain and France, from supporting the Confederacy. The war's major turning points came in 1863. The Battle of Gettysburg in Pennsylvania marked the Confederacy's last major attempt to invade the North and ended in a decisive Union victory. Meanwhile, the capture of Vicksburg gave the Union control of the Mississippi River, effectively splitting the Confederacy in two. From this point, the Union began to press its advantage, with generals like Ulysses S. Grant and William Tecumseh Sherman leading relentless campaigns through the South. Sherman's March to the Sea, a campaign of total war across Georgia, aimed to break the South's will to fight by destroying infrastructure, supplies, and morale. Meanwhile, Grant's siege of Petersburg and Richmond, the Confederate capital, steadily wore down Southern resistance. Facing dwindling resources, manpower, and hope, the Confederacy's situation became increasingly dire. On April 9, 1865, Confederate General Robert E. Lee surrendered to Grant at Appomattox Courthouse in Virginia, effectively ending the Civil War. Over the following weeks, remaining Confederate forces laid down their arms. The war's aftermath was profound. Over 600,000 soldiers died, and countless more were wounded or displaced. The South lay in ruins, its economy shattered. Slavery was abolished with the ratification of the 13th Amendment, but the promise of freedom and equality for formerly enslaved people would remain a struggle for generations. Reconstruction, the period that followed, sought to rebuild the nation and integrate millions of freed African Americans into society. However, it was fraught with challenges, resistance, and setbacks, laying the groundwork for future civil rights struggles. The Civil War's legacy endures in American memory, shaping the nation's values, laws, and understanding of freedom. It was a conflict born of division, but ultimately a step toward a more unified and just society. Though the journey toward true equality would continue long after the last shots were fired.